When he pulled out of the Paris Agreement, U.S. President Donald Trump also ended contributions to the Green Climate Fund. And since then, donations have rapidly depleted, putting many poorer countries, including several in Latin America, at risk. Joining me now for more analysis is Sweta Chakraborty. She's a risk and behavioral scientist, plus an expert on climate science. We know that this big meeting has been happening in Paris, trying to secure between $9 and $10 billion. How important is it to get all of this tied up before that big climate conference in Chile in December?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this UN support of the Green Climate Fund requires a mechanism to be able to help developing countries raise that $100 billion commitment by next year. And the US pulling out really sent a signal. And so the $7 billion that was pledged and the $5 billion that was actually utilized and has been allocated is really rapidly depleting. And so as the countries that are still engaged and involved are meeting now in Paris, it's going to be really critical to see what these pledges are and what comes out of this pledge conference that's happening right now.
Is it because fighting climate change is becoming more expensive? And if you take the United States out of it for a second, why has it been so difficult to get these pledges from various countries? Is it a result of politics or economics inside that country?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You need leadership to actually implement what we know, what the science community and what the global community supported through the UN and through the Green Climate Fund understands, that all of this needs to come together in a way that can get some of these projects off the ground that wouldn't get off otherwise. A good example of this is Central Asia. So there's a lot of upfront costs associated with getting renewable energy sources up and running. And so how do they get the investment that they need that is more, recognizes that there's going to be long-term returns? And this is something that this climate fund supports. So being able to identify what local banks and investors to partner with so as to get these types of initiatives off the ground is really critical, because they wouldn't be supported otherwise.
We have about a minute left. I want to get this question in. You know, part of this Green Climate Fund is about engaging and building trust with some of these poorer countries. Explain, if you can, in about 45 seconds, why that challenge is, it is such a challenge to gain that trust.
Yeah, and it's true. Latin America, for example, is really depending on some of these projects to be supported through this international initiative. So we see wetland resilience in Peru, we see energy efficiency in Paraguay, but it's places like Brazil that we don't have great relationships with, given the current administration in Bolsonaro and what we've been seeing as an international community with the Amazon wildfires. So why would an international community be able to build trust with these governments if they're not showcasing environmental stewardship that they're responsible for doing?
It's about letting outsiders in,
right,
and trusting them.
Right, and building those relationships globally.
Sweta, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.